What's up, you guys? Welcome back to our YouTube channel. So I'm excited because this is a video that a lot of you guys have asked for a really long time, and I figured what better time than now to finally get to filming this video. And this is going to be all about how I edit my Instagram photos. Every app that I use, every filter, every tip and trick that I can give you guys to get super cute Instagram photos. So I thought of doing a whole kind of series on this. Let me know if you guys would be interested in that. Like if you want kind of like how I take Instagram photos and, you know, tips for posing, tips for stuff like that. Let me know, I can do that, but let's just start with the basics on how I edit. So putting my screen up here so you guys can see exactly what I'm doing. So what I like to do first is, for example, I'll go through and I take a bunch of photos, or Hunter will take them. These are some selfies I was trying to take of my makeup this morning. I didn't end up really liking any of them. I also shot yesterday some jewelry pieces. So basically after that, I'll sit down and go through all the pictures, and I will heart my favorite ones at the bottom. You can see where this blue heart is. And I go through the ones that I like and I heart them all. So that way when I go to edit them, it's really easy to just have them all in one folder, and you know exactly what you're looking for, so you don't like get overwhelmed and like grab the wrong photo basically. So I do that. And this picture is actually pretty good lighting. So I'm gonna show you a few different examples based on like if the lighting is bad, if it's bright, if it's shot outside or inside and stuff like that. So this is like generally a pretty nicely lit photo. It doesn't need a lot of help, but there are a few things that I like to change about it. So I'm gonna first start by going into Lightroom. And the reason I go into this app is to change colors and lighting if I need to. In this instance, I'm not gonna change the lighting at all, but I'll go here, go to my favorites, and then I will grab this photo. Okay, so the only thing that I think I'd probably like to change about this is actually make myself look a little bit more tan. And this is definitely my #1 tip if you wanna make yourself look more tan in photos, which I do all the time, but you have to be careful not to go overboard. So you're gonna go to the color section and go to mix and hit the orange, and you hit the luminance button at the bottom and bring it down. So you can see how like dark it could go, which gets like really insane. I usually will literally just do it like that much, maybe like 13, where it just gives you a light tan, but it doesn't look unnatural, and you can easily go overboard with this, so be careful. I also noticed that the walls in our house tend to pull green in pictures. So I will go to the green, and I'll lower the saturation of the green, maybe even a little bit of the yellow. You can see how it starts to go away and it looks more blue, and I'll do that just till it's like just more neutral. I don't like yellow or green tints in anything. So that looks good. That's all I'm gonna do in Lightroom. Let's go ahead and export that to my camera roll. Then I'm gonna go into VSCO and pull the newly edited photo into VSCO. And this is where I apply all of my filters. So I'll go to my favorites. My favorite filters to use are M5, M6, and AL1. Those are usually all of the filters that I pretty much revolve through. Sometimes I just won't even filter a photo. It just depends looking at it the way that I like it to look, and I just go off of that. So for instance, I usually turn the filters all the way down to like maybe 2 or 3. I don't really go higher than that unless it's like a product flat lay, which I'll show you in a second. So this one, the M5, it kind of makes it look a little bit more yellow, so I'm not sure if I want that. So I'm gonna go to the AL1, and I kind of like the way that that one's looking. It's kind of like brightening it and making it a little bit cooler. Or M6 is kind of in the middle. I think actually that's kind of pretty. So I don't know, I'll just play around with the brightness. Again, don't want it to look too filtered, so I'll probably go, I don't know, this one looks good at like 3.4. Okay, great, so I do that. Then I always adjust the photo in the 4 to 5 size in VSCO because that's what Instagram is gonna crop it to automatically. So I'll just do that here so I don't have to mess around with that. And like sometimes you can go into Instagram and you're like, wait, it cut my photo a different way than I thought. This just makes sure that you're framing it correctly and all of that good stuff. And sometimes I maybe sharpen it like 1 or 2 if it's like an iPhone photo, which it usually is. And that looks good. So, okay, we'll go ahead and hit next. And I'm gonna save that down to my camera roll. And the last thing I do is edit in Facetune. So I'm gonna pull the most recent version of that picture up. And this you wanna be really careful with. Facetune I use very sparingly, and you really, sometimes I don't even use Facetune. If my skin looks pretty good, I just leave it because it can easily look really fakey. But you can see I have just a little texture on my forehead, so I'll kind of like smooth that out just a little bit with the smooth tool. Maybe a little bit on my cheeks, but not much. So see how it just looks like a little bit nicer and like less blotchy, but nothing crazy. Also love the detail tool. So the detail tool, you can sharpen things kind of like your eyes. So I'll go ahead and I usually just like do my top eyelashes. I find that that like defines the eyes a little bit. And then I usually do jewelry, especially for like a post like this, which is gonna be like a jewelry post. I will go over all of like my rings, my necklaces, and it just makes them pop a little bit more. So that's kind of all that I do. If you want to like do anything in your hairline, you can do that. So like my hair's up in a bun, and right here there's kind of like a little patchy spot. So sometimes I'll like take this tool and just like kind of, you can darken areas of your hairline if you want that to be like a little bit more filled in, stuff like that. But again, try not to go overboard. You can see that this photo, like before and after, it's so subtle you can barely even tell, but it just kind of cleans it and makes it look like super perfect. So that's how I would do that photo, which is more of like, same thing would be for like a selfie or something super close up. Next I'm gonna show you a photo. Let's do one more like that doesn't have the best lighting. So for instance, this picture that I took this morning in the mirror. Let's see. Okay, so like this is like a mirror pic, right? So there's a couple things I would do in this photo. For one, I think the light is really bad. So I'm gonna pull it into Lightroom and go to the light tool. And here I usually will up the shadows to get the brightness. I don't usually do the exposure tool because that just makes it look fake bright. It doesn't actually like help it. So shadows, shadows is usually the one that I'll stick with. So I'll pull it up to there. That looks like nice, like lightly lit. Or sometimes I'll play around with the blacks and see if that looks more natural. But in this case, I think the shadow tool is making it look better. So we'll do that. You can't really tell, like not all of my skin is showing in this photo, so I won't adjust the tan. Really, I could do it a little bit. Let's see. Just a little bit down so I look a little bit more tan. And this room specifically in my house is not gray, so I don't have to worry about like the green or the yellow. Sometimes the grass from the backyard will reflect through, but it's not in this case. It's more yellowy, so I'll turn the yellow down a little bit. Okay, so that's for Lightroom, how I'd fix the lighting. So we'll go ahead and export that. Then again, pull it into VSCO. And I'm gonna adjust the size first, and I will throw a filter on it. So typically for photos that are a little bit darker, even if I've already corrected them in Lightroom, they still sometimes like need a little bit of help, or they need a little bit of a heavier filter because they just don't look as nice just on their own. So AL1 is really great when you're having like a bad lighting situation. It really brightens things, but in this case, I feel like it kind of makes it too blue. So let's try M5. I kind of like the way M5 looks. It makes it look a little bit more natural. Or M6. Oh yeah, I kind of like M6. So I'll do that about like halfway. And see what I mean? You just kind of play around with whichever one that you like. And that is pretty much good for that. So I'll go ahead and save that down to my camera roll. And usually for these types of photos where my face isn't in it, I won't really Facetune anything. I might just adjust the size on my camera roll. So for instance, I'll go to this crop tool. This is just like the iPhone camera. And I kind of don't like that light fixture poking out at the top. So I'll just zoom in a little bit and kind of clean that up. That's kind of like, okay, like a mirror selfie. Let's do a couple more. One tool that's really, really helpful that I want to show you guys is this app called Retouch. And basically you can remove just about any item from a photo, which is awesome. So it doesn't always work perfectly, but most of the time, if it's just something in the background that you want to get out or kind of remove, it works really well. So let's go in and, for example, this works really well if you're like shooting outside and you have to remove like a car or like an ugly, you know, street sign or something like that. I usually shoot mostly like at home and kind of in areas that I can control a lot. So I don't have to use this too much, but for example, okay, let's say this picture of Hunter and I, we forgot to like kind of remove some of the clothes from the ground and it just looks kind of messy and it just takes away from the picture. So I will go here and hit object removal. And this pair of jeans sticking here is just kind of bothering me. So basically you're gonna highlight and color in the area that you don't want and then hit go, and it will basically remove the item, which is amazing. So it doesn't always work perfectly. You can see it kind of like reflected that. It works better if like it's just in the middle of the room or something, like isolated, but sometimes I'll just try it like a few times over again until it looks a little bit better. Usually like the more precise you are, the better. So let's see, let's try one more time. Or you can like go over it again, like if you wanted to just trim that. Like to me, that looks decent. That's pretty good. Like I don't think people would really notice that in a photo that much. But you can also like spend more time on it to get it really perfect. We can also try and remove this suitcase that I was so lazy and didn't unpack, and that's like pretty amazing. So already to me, that looks way better. And let's see if I could do this little guy. Yeah, that's pretty good. Okay, so that looks like pretty cleaned up. Also, sometimes I'll remove like vents from the ceiling because it just cleans it up and like looks better, stuff like that. So we'll go ahead and save that. And then I would go through and edit it like normal, how I do like my other mirror selfie. I'd take it into Lightroom and then VSCO. Okay, so lastly, let's do one more photo. Let's see here. Okay, let's do this picture I did the other day. It was actually shot in direct sunlight outside on our walk. So it was really, really bright. Okay, for instance, we took this picture on our walk the other morning with Noah, and you can see that it was super bright outside. I kind of like some of parts of my body are more shadowed than others. The sky is super blue. I typically like to shoot in mostly like neutral areas. I don't like a lot of green or blue or red. Like I just like more neutral vibes. That's just the style that I like. So I would pull this into Lightroom and I would first go to the colors. So I always like to kind of desaturate the sky a little bit. I'll bring the luminance up to brighten it and then saturation down. Same with the grass. I'll bring the saturation down in the greens just a little bit, and I'll add a little bit of tan and then I'll go to the lighting. So I'll kind of just play around to see if I can fix those shadows that you can see on my face. I don't want to brighten it like too much though, because it's gonna start to look like washed out and fakey if I do that. I think in this instance, just to leave it, and I'll show you one other app that I really like for light fixes. So let's go ahead and save. So you can see before and after, and it just softens the colors a little bit so they're not as bright. The last app that I really like for photos is Snapseed, and this is really great if you have to fix certain areas of the photo that you want to be brighter or less colorful, and you kind of need to isolate that spot. So that's when I would bring this photo in. Let's see. So there's certain areas of my face that are more shadowed. You can see on the left side of my face, the sun was coming in, but then on the other side, it's darker because that's where the shadows were. So I'll try and add some brightness to that. And for that, I really love using the selective tool. So go to Tools, Selective, and you can change the type of tool you want to use. So you can do structure, saturation, contrast, and brightness. I usually only use the brightness tool on this. So I'll bring the brightness to my face just on that right side, and then you hold down and you drag up to the right, and you can see it starts to brighten just that area. So that's really helpful if you're just trying to light up like your face and you don't want the whole photo to get washed out. It's perfect for that. I'll also kind of try it on a certain area of my body that's a little bit more shadowed. Let's see. And just kind of move it around and play with it until it looks natural. And I feel like that looks pretty good. So you can see how much brighter it makes certain areas, but you don't want to go too far where it like washes it out. You'd have to be really careful. But this is why it's so important to shoot in good lighting originally, because it's really difficult to fix a badly lit photo. And I think that's like my #1 tip for like good Instagrams is like crystal clear lighting. And that's just like trial and error and practice and stuff. So I can definitely make a video on lighting and like finding good backgrounds. Let me know if you guys are that into the Instagram thing, then I can show you. But mostly the questions I get asked are on editing. So okay, then I'll bring that photo into VSCO. And then typically when the photos are shot in direct sunlight, filters just don't look like as good on them. They kind of make them look even more washed out than they even need to be. So I usually go really light on the filters in this one, if any. So I think, let's see, I just kind of go through my favorite ones. I think AO1's gonna be way too bright. Yeah, that looks terrible. I'm thinking that M5 is looking a little fuzzy, so maybe M6. That looks good to me, but again, like I'm barely gonna do the filter at all because it just like will wash it out too much. And I think it'll just help it tie in with the rest of my feed if it just has like a little bit of a filter. So maybe a 2 on that. And that's kind of it. Then I'll save it and post it. Okay, I hope that helped you guys. And sorry it's taking me so long to actually sit down and do this. But if you have any questions or apps that you love or any tips, leave them down below. Again, I try to like not overly edit the photos, but I just like them to look nice and well lit and balanced and everything. So hope you guys liked it. Let me know what other Instagram videos you want to see in this series, and I'll see you soon.